Pumps were better than Canadian radio playing Canadian songs. There was so much that was coming out that was just so similar, and the Pumps weren't like any of it.
In 1980, the Pumps, a Winnipeg-based rock band, released their debut album called Gotta Move. Record sales in Canada for a new artist were met with high expectations from their recording label Polygram. This band seemed to have all the makings of the next big act to come out of Canada.
I personally found the Pumps, right from the get-go, amazingly interesting and amazingly together. They looked good and they played great. So from my point of view, yeah, I found it really interesting.
I always thought they wrote really good songs. I always thought that. I always thought they really performed well.
These guys should have been superstars. I mean, the look of Chris Burt Gaffney as the lead, you know, it was the perfect situation. You know, Louis was a little wild and crazy. Brent was probably the most stable at the time. And Terry was also, you know, a great-looking guy and a great musician. These guys had it all.
I thought it was absolutely magical. It was the best music that I'd ever heard and that anybody had ever written, and that Lou was just a genius.
I thought they had great character. They looked good and they played great. So from my point of view, yeah, I found it really interesting.
But by the time the fans were ready to hear the Pumps follow-up album, things would change. New band members, new label, and a new name.
You know, sometimes it's just a matter of getting that right break or that right opportunity, and I always felt bad that they didn't get it. They should have been rock stars. They were rock stars. In my eyes, okay? They were rock stars.
This documentary's mission is to find out how and why this band didn't leave a bigger mark in the music industry. The Pumps, formed in early 1978 and centered around friends Chris Burt Gaffney on vocals and bass, lead guitarist Lou Petrovich, and drummer Terry Norman Taylor. Within a few months, Brent Diamond joined on keyboards. Their album, Gotta Move, produced 3 singles that found their way to FM radio's playlists across the country, including Bust the TV,
She's always there.
Coffee with the Queen, and Success. More than 30 years later, we find band members rehearsing for an upcoming show.
What makes you want to do a show?
Well, we still love playing. We wouldn't want, I don't think any of us would want to do it all the time. It's always fun to pretend you're a rock star for a night. And people still come out and see us, so it's a special night. It's not only a musical reunion, it's also a reunion of friends, because a lot of these guys, Stevie and Brent and any of the band members, probably wouldn't see them unless we were playing and rehearsing, so it's an opportunity to hang out with each other.
Yeah, and even a lot of the people that come, people that we haven't seen for a long time that used to know, and reminiscing with them.
So it's a win-win for the fans as well as you guys.
Oh yeah, it's a family affair. It's a really fun thing. It's kind of like, it's like a family reunion with some rock and roll thrown in.
Yeah.
I guess I was in St. Ignatius School. I was in grade 7, and this guy showed up, Terry Taylor, who
was in grade 8, and he was a drummer, and I really loved music, but I wasn't really interested in playing that much until he was a music buff and played music for me, and I can't remember if it was a cassette or if they even had cassettes, but he played me this recording of this group, and it was Jimi Hendrix.
I was already into the music thing, and I basically got Chris involved in it and sort of turned him on to, you know, let's start fooling around with this, and we started jamming, and, you know, he had a bass, and, you know, I always had drums. We always wanted to get a band going. Let's face it, if you get a band, you get chicks. That's the mentality back then. You get more attention, you get, you know, it's just the way it is. And the bigger your amplifiers are, the better.
We courted Lou for a long time. He was playing in another band, but we just loved the way he played and thought he was cool. And so we bugged him all the time until, you know, he said, well, just come and jam with us. You don't have to join the band. Just come and jam with us.
They used to help me, that's right. And their biggest thing was the Hendrix things. I remember that.
We'd go to Lou's house, and Lou would be at Tech Voc at school, and we'd actually steal his amp, and he had like this little, you know, a little stack, and eventually he phoned us and said, you guys got my gear? And we said, yeah, and he said, well, I'm coming over to get it, you know, and we said, fine, it's all set up, we're ready to go.
There was a group of musicians that all kind of played together. Over a few years, people would change, it would change who was in what band with who. And
I was playing in a group with Chris and Terry and Glenn Willows from Harlequin called Max Damien.
That project probably didn't last that long. We did a lot of original songs and real long original songs. Some of these songs are like 13 minutes long, so I could see why we weren't getting work in the city.
But when it all got sorted out, I think it was first of all Lou, myself, and Greg Gardner, and then that's the first time I think we ever called ourselves the Pumps.
This I do remember, we were looking through Yellow Pages, and the word Pumps came up. And I think it was Chris who said, what about the Pumps? That's how we got the name. Also, it's a shoe. It's a female shoe, isn't it a pump? So that's how we tied the two in. It wasn't like pumps. That's how we tied it in.
Eventually, Greg left, and at that time I was open. So they asked me if I wanted to, you know, join in. And I jumped all over it.
Sounds good. What do you think, Terry? No vote?
Oh, sure. I like it holding too.
Okay, that's settled.
What time are we on? 11?
11.
I thought there was a guy coming from the radio station to intro us. I was hoping I could talk to him first, and so he doesn't say anything goofy. These guys have been doing it for 60 years, and here they are for you tonight.
Oh, that's not that far off.
We met with Harlequin's sound man, which is a guy named Jimmy Kinsman, who was a really good sound man. And he sort of became our de facto developer, manager kind of guy briefly.
And he showed some interest in us, which made all of us very excited because this is Jim Kinsman. Like, he's sort of the best you can get as far as sound guys.
He'd watched Harlequin and what they needed to do and how, you know, in order to elevate their career. And so we implemented a lot of the ideas that they had.
You certainly didn't want to be going on stage and you were going to come out and like you were going to look like you were a basement band from Transcona with the little wee, like you had your guitar in one hand and some piddly amp in the other hand. Like that was just not going to happen. There was no point for where they wanted to go. They wanted to look like a real band, means real gear, and the look for the era at that time was, you know, like kind of like walls of gear.
We went to my mom and borrowed, she signed a loan for us for $5,000 and we bought a big PA, and
it was monstrous. It was huge, but it made us feel real good, you know?
They had a little practice hall in St. Boniface and we started building a sound system because everybody owned everything, and it was like power trio time.
And then he ended up getting us gigs in all the bars in town that, you know, we wanted to play in, where people came out to see us.
On stage and sound and lights, and he helped us a lot with that.
That's kind of how it got started.
We just started getting an enormous amount of equipment, and there's no way we could play and do, you know, empty the trucks and set everything up. So Jim got all these guys together, it became our crew.
Well, in the early days, we needed a lighting guy. A fellow by the name of Doug Antoine came on board, and he brought along Tom Kowalski, who became our on-stage guitar tech / monitor tech.
Jimmy was the driving force. He really, really was. Antoine came to call him Little Hitler because he hated working hard, and we worked hard and loaded trucks and unloaded trucks and drove, and that was our life, and I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I liked that he was so into it. That's all he did. He didn't have a job, right? That was his whole thing. He was driven.
And they were a big part of your show. Sometimes you try to, you know, outspend the other bands by having bigger production because that's what you needed to do. People would walk in and go, holy, you know, the show would start and all these lights would go and the stage would have all these amps and a gigantic PA and stuff, and then people would go, oh, this is a big band, like this is, you know, this is a big production.
We would have people come in and go, oh my God, it's going to be loud, before they even started. So, I don't know. You know, maybe we were successful with that, I don't know.
The great thing back then is that there was a lot of clubs, and you could fill a club back then depending on who the band was. Whereas nowadays it's, you know, it's got nothing to do with bands, it's about DJs or scenes or something like that. Back then it was all about the band.
We'd play 6 nights a week in one bar. 6 nights a week. And fill it almost every night.
I don't know if there was 8 or 12 different rooms. There was enough rooms where you played the whole city. And by the time it gets back to the first room that you played, it's 9 weeks later.
There was a lot of great places for bands to play and to you know, develop their chops and become really good and have an audience and also get paid. Like back then you got paid really well to play. Whereas nowadays, I feel for the younger bands that are coming out, they don't really make any money until they've achieved a status where they can, you know, sell tickets, which is a lot harder to do now than it was back then. So it was a great scene. There was a lot of great bands, and there was a real huge audience.
There was Harlequin, Streetheart, even some of the bands that weren't making records, you know, were still really good. You know, there were bands like The Fuse and The Freeze and Woodwork and Dash and the Dots, and it was vibrant back then.
What you attained to play at was the Norlander, the St. Vital, Black Knight, well, of course, the Zoo. The Zoo was a big place to play too. Those are the ones that you sort of strive to get into.
Winnipeg had its own very vibrant music scene. CBC had a full-time running show for one season, operating out of the St. Vital Hotel that would showcase local bands. So most bands stayed around home. Most of them practiced long winter nights, partied the long winter nights, played great music, and Winnipeg has always been the breeding ground for some of the best musicians to ever come out of Canada.
On the weekends, you'd see school buses passing each other on the highway with the truss on the top, and then you knew it was another band just going back and forth. And this is what people did. They didn't have another job where like they'd go and play at night. The main thing was to be a musician or one of the crew, and this is what you did. And it was full time, and it was full on. And it was a very healthy scene. And there was a scene, you know.
The band was established as a three-piece pretty well. Like, we had a good following, and we played a lot. We played in Saskatchewan and Calgary, I believe. And
you're a little more limited as a three-piece. You know, we had the bass pedals and all that kind of stuff that sort of expanded the sound, but we were very interested in, you know, adding some keyboards just to fill it out and getting a good soloist. And let's face it, that was the beginning of the 80s. Brent was out in Toronto with, I believe it was Hurricane Hannah.
Well, I joined the Pumps in 1978. We had been in bands where we did original material, all of us. So that was what we wanted to do. And we wrote songs, and the main thing was we wanted to get a record deal.
We sort of prided ourselves on trying to come up with great material, and we felt that that was a way it was going to separate us from all the other bands that were good musicians, is if we had good material and were good live and material that sort of reflected our brand as a group. And so we worked on that right from the beginning.
And I remember, you can't do original music. Well, I don't even know if we were good enough to do other people's music that when we first started, so we started doing our own.
What really attracted me to the Pumps was the fact that they sold so many tickets.
We'd achieved a certain level. We could fill the bars, we were touring, but we wanted to get a record deal. We wanted to be on the radio. And so in order to do that, we felt like we needed a manager.
I remember this, and it's very funny that a couple of fans that always came out to see us and saying they were our managers, and they weren't. People were starting to think, like, you know, these guys could get a record contract. And these guys were walking around saying they were our managers, and they weren't. And Frank, or I think Frank was at a gig we were playing and went, you know what, you know, these guys can't be your managers. You need a manager, and I'm the guy.
After I did several shows with them and made a fair bit of money, I was really curious about everything to do with the Pumps, and right from the stage show right to their audiences, and generally it really piqued my interest.
We didn't know anything about management. Who does at that age, you know, coming up? So we knew he'd been around in the business. Actually, we found out he did stuff like, he put on Eagles concerts, the Eagles, right? He did quite a few concerts in Winnipeg, promoted concerts. So we knew he was in the business.
He said he could get us a record deal, and that's what we wanted more than anything.
I thought that something could be done, and, you know, towards getting them a record deal or getting them to grow within the marketplace. So it was something that was definitely of interest to me from the beginning.
With the band making demo tapes and with Frank's connections, things started moving quite quickly.
So I sent the demo tape to Bob Henzel, who was in charge of promotion and marketing for Polygram. Bob got back to me, kind of went, wow, this is really good.
You know, Polygram Records came down. We did a show for one guy, Larry Mason, at a place called the Native Club.
Where we set up our gear, we rented the hall there. There was no people there.
I didn't even tell them that they had A&R coming in from Polygram, from any record label, because quite honestly, I didn't know what their reaction would be. I wanted to stick strictly on the music, on the presentation, and do it without any window dressing.
might possibly be one of the worst sounding buildings I've ever been in my life. So to bring somebody there to see a band or to hear the band, and then they like the band and signed the band, that's unbelievable. That's awesome.
And we played and he signed us.
Frank said he could get us a record deal. He got us a record deal, so he was our manager.
It was fine. It was straight ahead, and it wasn't bad, and it was easy to do, and Frank was personable, and he was attentive to detail, and I liked the guys in the band. They're nice, they're personable. So I said, what the hell, you know, I mean, the company wanted to find something Canadian, you know, the company's looking for something Canadian to find, because they'd never done it before, really. Come with a little budget, and we'll do some more stuff, and as it turns out, then, you know, we'll continue on with a full album, and that's what we did.
That's what we wanted to do. That's what we were striving for. Another step, you know, but a big step.
It actually did go fairly quick because I joined, like I said, in '78. They'd only been playing a short time, and we were in the studio in '79.
And it was a big thing to get a record deal back then. It was a pretty big thing, like, you know, because record companies, that's who's going to spend $1 million on you, you know? They're the only people that have the capital to do that. And also the marketing, the marketing departments that can break you at radio and whatever else they do.
At that point, I had a mixed feeling because I knew my life was going to change just from this used to be fun, but now it was going to be 24/7. Your livelihood. Things are about to change. Because I didn't know a lot about the industry, but I knew you couldn't just do what you wanted. You had to come up with songs, and so I knew we were about to change our lives. And didn't know anything about the business, really. So when somebody's going to say, okay, I'm from a record company, we're going to sign you, what do? You go for it. Hopefully your manager knew enough what we were getting ourselves into. Because I know I sure the hell didn't, you know? So we went with it.
The boys have finished a week of rehearsals and are ready for their gig. Terry Taylor won't be able to perform with them, so they brought in another drummer, and it's a big pair of shoes to fill.
Well, Dylan has, we've played together a lot in the past, so, and we've also been really close. He seemed like the obvious choice.
And it was the tattoos that clinched it.
Took a while before we, actually went and recorded the record. That's when Sam Cates got in there and did a little bit to get it happening.
Obviously, if you're trying to take what I thought was a very talented group of musicians, you got to spend money to get them to where you want to go. So I'm sure that was probably the first reason that, they thought maybe if we brought Sam to the table. And so Frank and I got together and we basically, worked on the Pumps together.
And I heard a lot about Sam, like he's great at his financial. So we said, yeah, whatever you need, Frank, let's bring him on.
Everything else for the next 2-3 months was about making that record.
It was in Warren Heights, up in the mountains, and it was beautiful.
The studio at that time was the studio in Canada. Not only Canada, it was renowned in the world because major artists from all over were coming there to record.
David Bowie had recorded there, John Lennon had recorded there, a lot of really big bands, and it was a world-class facility where they had, a lot of big studios.
It was a great feeling when I saw the studio and that, like, to actually be in a real studio. It was wonderful.
They asked us to make a list of top 10 producers that we would want to work with. So we had Glyn Johns, I think, as one of them, who produced The Who. He did like Zeppelin, all the British bands, rock bands, Glyn Johns, the Stones, everybody, right? They kept going, nah, we can't get you that, we can't get you that, we can't get you that. And it was like, Glyn Johns. Well, you know what? We can't get you Glyn Johns, but we got the guy who replaced Glyn Johns, who finished off the Who album, by the name of John Astley. I went, who's that? And he was Pete Townshend's brother-in-law. And he was a producer, and Glyn Johns was so fed up with the Who, couldn't take it anymore, and he walked out. And Pete called John and said, just finish off the album. Well, I think that was Who Are You, that album. And so they said, we got him, and he's got a partner. We'd never even heard of Phil Chapman. We went, really? And so we weren't happy.
Phil Chapman, to me, was a genius. He knew, like, when we got into that studio and the way he could work the equipment, I was like, that's what I want to do.
Well, I could see how the producers were defining their music and really expanding on and creating parts for the guys to play and restructuring things and seeing what some really creative people could do with, some really great songs.
In the end, we were really happy that it worked out that way because, as I said, we didn't even know who they were, and as it turns out, it was a really good pick.
We go from making a record and then coming back to Winnipeg and as sort of, as heroes, because we finally made a record, and then it not coming out for a year that was a tough one.
Well, the record did eventually come out, and it did pretty well at radio and sales and helped us get tours and stuff like that.
I'm pretty sure none of us came up with Gotta Move. That was them.
Polygram had decided to name the album Excess Baggage. I walked down the hall to the president's office and I went, Tim, you cannot call the album Excess Baggage. And he went, what are you thinking, Frank? And I said, look, at one of the songs has the lyrics "Gotta Move" on it. Gotta move is far an easier pill to swallow than excess baggage. Let's call it that. And we looked at the two submissions for the album art. One of them was, believe it or not, a plane in flames getting ready to crash into Montreal skyline. Let's stick with this album art, and let's stick with the title "Gotta Move," and that's how the album, in fact, came together on that basis.
I think Bust the TV, when it came out, just had radio written all over it.
There definitely wasn't the original version of it. Not much of that song was the original version of it. So when I heard the final product of it, I said, okay, we're going the new wave sound.
So I came up the part that, that part, and that just changed the whole, where the song went.
First time hearing Bust the TV was very, yeah, I can't believe it, I'm getting emotional. Wow, yeah, stop.
A bunch of us, if not the whole band, we were in a car driving, and you hear one of your songs on the radio for the first time. That was exciting. And it was Bust the TV. And hey, that's us.
To think about going from that little hall in St. Boniface to hearing the song on the radio was pretty amazing.
Success was a song that I thought was just kind of a riff. I didn't think there was anything special about it, but until we started playing it live, and then people, that just happened to be a song that resonated with people for some reason, so we knew that, you know, that would, and the record company and the producers, you know, everybody thought that was a special song.
People like it, and they still like it. You know, it's one of our fan favorites up to this day.
That was more along our line. Before we went into the studio, that edgier, like I said, we were stuck in that changing of the music, changing of the guard.
There's a big part in that song with the keyboards, with doing the brass, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? They wanted that gone. Phil said, that's out. When he said, we're taking that out, I went, I'll take you outside and fight you to the death. I remember saying that to him. I'll fight you to the death on that one. And the band said, no, that ain't going out. So it stayed. He wasn't happy, but it stayed.
So at that point, I think the producers did like a fantastic job.
Honestly, I felt very proud of the album the boys did. I hope the Pumps would be, with their album, that they would have the opportunity to, you know, break open as a big band.
I remember that City FM used to have their own that they published, and I do know we made it to number 3, because number 1 when we were was The Wall, so we couldn't knock them off. Geez, why not? And then we were number 3 for a long time, but yeah, didn't get higher than that, which is still pretty good. The first tour we did after the album was the Prism tour.
They were really good dates. Prism at the time, Lord could play Maple Leaf Gardens, Montreal Forum. I mean, they definitely were, you know, they were at the height of their career.
I thought we hit the big time. I totally believed it. Suddenly we're doing Maple Leaf Gardens with Prism.
We did all of Eastern Canada, from Toronto and Southern Ontario to St. John's, Newfoundland.
As far as the records doing great on radio, they were doing really good, but we'd go to a lot of places where there'd be no records in the stores.
And we were out in the Maritimes, and all the shows were sold out, and it was a big thing. And then we found out, like, a lot of fans were coming to us and going, we'd really like to buy your record, but we can't find it.
And it was awfully embarrassing. I just, you know, I thought that was a pretty bad start to everything.
This is when I started getting very upset with our record company. In the Maritimes, all through the Maritimes, it turned out Busted TV was a top 5. If it wasn't number 1 in a city, it was the lowest it was number 5. No albums, none, not in one record store. The guy who took care, they had one guy who did all their work for Polygram, who was a hockey coach. He wasn't a music business guy, he was a hockey coach. He met us, he took us around, and I went, why we have a top 5 song. Why aren't there any records? I don't know. We would play, and the crowd didn't know who we were, and we played Busted TV, and they went crazy. Like, they knew the song. Those are the guys. Why don't you guys put out an album? I was so mad. We were told if Polygram would have been on top, at least done their job, we could have gone gold in the Maritimes alone.
There was a failure in somebody communicating to the salespeople in Newfoundland, in the Maritimes, get the goddamn records in the stores. The sales force for Eastern Canada was always a joke. Okay, always. Not the guy there, But the people in Montreal who were supposed to be doing, liaising with him and making sure he was okay, they never did it.
See, that's the key thing. I mean, the investment has to be made, to get the message out there. It's so different today than it was back then.
If we would have had a platinum record, they probably would have. There probably wouldn't have been delay in the second record, or everybody. It would have been, there wouldn't have been a divorce. Probably everybody would have been happy if we were, sold a lot more records. But that's not how it unfolded.
That's basically A&R 101 is you better find out whether the marketing guys and the promo guys are behind you, because if they're not, you're in big trouble. Have Frank, have me, or have the company. That's why Halifax went the way that way.
They're going to throw all their money into the Bee Gees and bands like that. We were just a tax write-up as far as I'm concerned, So whatever.
They never really got the shot that they deserved, right? There wasn't promo and stuff, and, having a song on the radio is one thing, but if people can't go buy your record, I think they'll forget you pretty quick.
After returning home from touring, the band was called in for a meeting with management to discuss some needed changes.
We didn't have a problem with Frank or Sam, the band, and I don't think they had a problem with us either. I think there was an internal dispute between Frank Weipert and Sam Cates.
They just said, choose.
The music business is the most unbusiness-run business that I've ever come across.
Frank had one way of thinking, I had another way of thinking. And so, we worked together for a while, and then we realized it wasn't going to happen with both of us there. It had to be one or the other. And I know, the band at the time had some meetings, and I'm sure they weren't easy. But in the end, they decided that Frank would be the person they would want to continue with at the time. And I said, fine, whatever you guys want to do is okay with me.
We probably leaned towards Frank because he initially got us our record deal.
I know that we had meetings after that going, maybe we should have chose Sam.
Well, I'm going to say this. Brent and I, as I recall, we voted the same. And we lost 3-2. I'll let you do the math.
I spent a lot of time with Sam when he was negotiating, before when we were negotiating the contract. I was at his house a lot, swimming in his pool, and he'd be on the phone, with Polygram, and just listening to him talk. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And I think that's probably because I did spend a lot of time with him, why I thought we should stay with him.
It's too bad, but I really appreciated him telling me that, and I just felt bad that they didn't. They should have been rock stars. They were rock stars, but they just never got to where I think they should have been. And I'm sure many others, because they were so popular here. So many great artists, come out of, Winnipeg, Manitoba, and these should have been another example of that too.
Even after the band chooses Frank, Polygram was making decisions that would lead to the beginning of the end of the original lineup of the Pumps.
I was encouraged by Polygram to go and get a U.S. management out of Los Angeles to basically further the band's career in stateside.
Polygram didn't think Frank had the ballsy enough to be a States manager. That's why they said to Frank, get somebody else before we released the record in the States.
I'll do for what Frank did for you in Canada, I'll do it in the States. But you got to toss Frank overboard. Rock and roll is a vicious game.
We were guaranteed an American release. That fell apart because they got a new president for Polygram and in the States, and he said, no, unless we have a previous record released by an artist, we're not releasing any new foreign acts. So that was what they told us. So henceforth, we guaranteed you an American release. You're not getting it.
He's the guy who basically went, fuck these guys. They're at the bottom of the pole. Sink whatever we got into established bands. So we were dead right there. No tour support, no nothing. So Unless you have support behind you, no records in stores, you're doomed.
The record company, you know, they had the rights to the second record. And so when it came time to record a second record, we felt like we had the material, and they were telling us we didn't have the songs yet, the good enough songs. So we kept submitting new songs, writing new songs, recording. And we were starting to get, you know, they just kept stalling us. That's what I remember. And so eventually we just told them that if you don't make a record, we want off the label. And so eventually they did let us go.
Maybe just a reflection of, like, really the Canadian music scene. And there's like so many bands that were at that same level that would get the first album. If you were lucky, you might get the second album. And then really dealing with the fact of what it takes for those bands to make it. And, you know, and that's typically staying together through, you know, the really trying times, changing labels, doing all those kinds of things.
We were kind of like starting over again. And at that point, I was a little frustrated and just went, you know, I think I'm going to pack it in and try a day job, and which I had never had. And yeah, so that's sort of what happened.
I was disappointed, and you know, back then, you're younger, I was probably mad at him. I was disappointed that he left, because it was like one of the people, it was like a crack in the armor. One person was going, I don't believe that we're going to make it.
Well, we replaced Terry with Brad Meadmore.
I played about a year with him, and then I do remember we did a long tour out east. We went to the Maritimes, we went to Toronto, and we met this other band, a band called Harbinger, and they were a really good band, and they were trying to poach Lou off us. I thought they had talked him into doing it because Lou left the band.
Because I remember he phoned me and said, let's go out for coffee. And I knew that's what he was going to say. Let's go out for some coffee with some cream. All right? So, and he told me, yeah, I'm leaving. And I just said, after it was all done and he was leaving, I said, by the way, are you taking Brad with you? And he goes, yeah. Which I wasn't unhappy about it, I'll have to admit at the time. So the two of them left, which just left myself and Chris. Like, what are we going to do now?
Brent and I sat down and said, Tish, can we continue on without them? Without, you know, we don't have Terry and we don't have Lou. Are we still viable? We decided to give it a go, and we knew we really needed to get a guitar player that had a lot of character and was kind of was really special, and we felt we'd find that with Stevie.
Steve and Ron were playing in a band, The Orphans, and we were literally more looking at Steve. We didn't even really know about Ron. We were just told, you know, they got a guitar player, like a really good guitar player, and he sings.
I think we heard they were auditioning for a drummer and a guitar player. So Ron Bovenue and I said, hey, let's go check it out. So we went to some basement, I can't remember whose basement it was. Played some songs and liked it and hired us.
And both of them could sing. Like, it was just a bonus, and they fit in really good.
I think we needed a new sound man at that time too, so we actually poached them all. The drummer, the guitar player, and their sound man, Howard Kopak. We were called the Pumps with those guys in the band for probably another year. Sony was signing a lot of Canadian bands at that time. They just signed Loverboy, and Loverboy had exploded worldwide, and so the guy who signed them, the Canadian guy, his name was Jeff Burns, he had a lot of leeway to sign other groups.
He was fighting for making connections for record companies to come and see us. And then he got Portrait from New York to fly out to see us.
It was CBS who signed us. We just ended up coming out on the Portrait label, which they owned. but it was the same guy who signed Loverboy that signed us.
We went to New York to record that album as the second Pumps album. Different members, right? A couple of different members. But we had finished the album, and the executives in New York from CBS were out for breakfast or lunch. And they asked the waitress, what do you think of the name for a group, the Pumps? And she said, it's great, sounds real new wave. And they said to us, you know what, we're not releasing this album if you change your name. Because we weren't a new wave band. And if anything, that first Orphan album, or the second Pumps album, was heavier than the Pumps album, as far like more rock than even the Pumps album. And they just said, it's not coming out, change the name.
I don't know how Orphan got slid in there, but it did, and I guess they liked it.
I thought it had something to, the fact that the two of the guys were from The Orphans. We'll take the off it, because so it doesn't sound like it's a new wave thing, and just call it Orphan. And that's a little bit dark and lonely, which is like your songs, Lonely at Night and stuff. I got talked into it.
Recorded at the Power Station in New York City, Orphan's Lonely at Night album was released in the spring of '83.
So we have a new album, a new name, Orphan. The name of the album is Lonely at Night. There's a video for Lonely at Night, a 45 version for Lonely at Night. So we sort of figured that's going to be the single. It's sort of been decided. And just before that happens, the guy from CBS who signed us goes, no, I'm the king of the world because I signed Loverboy. Saved by the Bell is the single. And boom, on his word, they put it out. Laid back tune. Of course, no video, no nothing to back it up. And at that time, videos were getting big. You needed a video. We had it all planned out. Lonely at Night, good rock song, it's the name of the album. We thought it was a good song, good single. They obviously did if they put forth the money for the video and to do a 45 edit. So we thought, do that, hopefully it will do well. And if it does well enough, release Miracle. Here's the ballad now, which I thought, again, good song. People all, even though it never did get released as a single, people thought it was because it got so much airplay.
What they picked for singles, I wouldn't have picked as first single. I would have went for the hit, which they didn't do, and they never made a video of Miracle, which I thought they should have. So there were some things I thought, they could have made better decisions on.
But because they released Saved by the Bell, which was, a very low-key song, they went, well, we can't put out Miracle because no one will even know you guys are a rock band. Well, that's your fault. So that really, I think, hurt us. I know it hurt us.
After the first tour to support the Lonely at Night album, the band received some bad news from their drummer, Ron Babineau.
I think he was homesick, like all his brother, his mother and father, lived in BC, and I think he was homesick. That was part of it, his decision to leave. He developed cancer and then eventually died. Ron was like the Keith Moon. He was crazy. He was fun on the road. He was a lunatic. He died when he was only 25. He was pretty young.
With touring dates booked, the band needed to find a new drummer. Chris and Brent would look to an old friend.
You know, if there's an opening that ever comes up, you know, if Ron decides to leave, you know, get me back in here.
I sort of said no. I said, you know, you quit once. He was telling me, no, I've changed, I've grown up, and I really want to rejoin the band. And we finally just broke down and went, you know what, Terry's the guy, we know that. We don't have to try him out, we played with him.
Following over a year on the road, they got back to the writing table to finish working on new material and were whisked off to New York's Kingdom Sound Studios. Orphan's follow-up was 1985's Salute, marking the return of the production of Phil Chapman and Judd Astley.
Really isn't any weak songs on there. They're all pretty strong, but I think what was lacking was that one big single. And, you know, we just didn't have it, I guess.
The lead single, Lying to Me, worked its way up the charts. Followed by Open Up the Skies, both hovering around the top 30 at home, thanks in part to Much Music and MTV, both giving the video regular rotation.
I wish that, you know, both those videos that we did could have been a little more normal and portray us as musicians and as this is what we do for a living, but instead you got to learn how to act, which is a whole different ball game, and it doesn't really, it's not our forte, you know?
You know, they're paying for it, so, okay. Want me to dance? I'll dance, okay. I am a guitar player, but I'm not a dancer.
So be it. We're stuck with a couple of cheeseball videos.
Critics praised the album prior to its official release early that summer. But a critic's rave usually means less than stellar sales, as was the case here. After a road trip that lasted nearly a year, they were dropped by the label by the fall of 1985.
I just remember we didn't really break up. We just stopped playing and then never got back together. You know, actually until '87 when we did the first Pumps reunion. But we had just sort of stopped playing, and I just, well, I can't live on nothing, so I'm going to get a job. And everybody, we just faded apart.
Oh, it was a great experience, great learning experience. There were so many good nights playing, tours, you know, meeting, you know, people from Toronto, you know, even Platinum Blonde, they were cool.
Yeah, no, I don't look back and go, I should have been a big star, and you know, it's not my fault or anything like that. No, I don't. I think, yeah, it's all part of life. It's part of the ride, and it's a good ride, and the ride's still happening for me.
It wasn't long before the second Orphan lineup, where Gaffney, Diamond, Taylor, and McGovern decided to make a permanent part-time gig out of playing together, billed as the Pumps and Orphan. And the fans of Winnipeg have shown their love for these two bands for years.
I'm the biggest Pumps fan ever. I've been following them since 1977, I think, or 78. And I love them. They're awesome.
I'm waiting for them to come on and just blow us away. Pumps forever.
These people are here, all here with me, and they get sick of listening to them at my parties because they know once Cal gets a few in them, then the Pumps are coming out. That's it. That's a standard.
I'm the youngest person in the place, but I am.
Do I like them? Yes.
It's no wonder why I always jump and shout.
It's amazing that after all these years that there's still an interest in the band and the songs. And now they sing along to it, which is cool. Seeing kids like, you know, I'm pushing 60, pushing daisies almost, and there's these kids in front of you going like this. It gives you a boost. It's the people where you're playing for, not the corporations.
What's the scare? I got to make you do that to and fro. It seems all you want a little disco. A success. Just a little success. Success. You try to change the way I am. What the fuck's going on? What's a scam? I got to try, get away from you. I got to move. It's what else can I do? You turn me in and you turn me out. It's a wonder why I always jump inside. You're driving me into a